Hey folks, just give me a heads up if you hear me or you don't hear me or you don't see me or any of the above. Somebody shoot me a thumbs up or anything to let me know you hear me. Hey Steve, good to see you again, buddy. Everything looks good. Video sounds good. Cool. We'll wait a little bit longer, then we're going to just talk about two Charlies, the world of two Charlies, two great Charlies. Excuse me. I'll wait about another minute, and then we'll start chatting. Shoot me any questions about this topic, or anything else for that matter. Just a quick heads up. I'm going to do a live chat with my good buddy and Robin Ford sideman, Jeff McElwain. So it's Saturday at noon. That's a day after tomorrow. And I'll post it. But we'll chat about a bunch of stuff. Guitar, Robin Ford, George Benson, Charlie Parker, B.B. King, guitars, amps, pedals, whatever comes to mind. But, you can join in on the chat with us, throw some stuff out there. Just been working a lot with Robin Ford. Robin produced his last, I guess, CD. I can't say LP or, anyway, his last recording. So, has a lot of informative stuff. I think you'll find it to be at the very least entertaining. All right, let's talk about the two Charlies. The one Charlie may be less known to you all, or maybe not. I had the great good fortune from about 1971 to about 1977 having a lesson a week with the great Charlie Banacos, who was a wonderful piano player, and that's him back there. If you can see him, I'll move out of the way. He's sitting at his piano. A great soul. We lost him a few years back. But I'll turn you on to what he turned me on to early on in my lessons. He was a great inspiration. Always positive. Cat was always positive. I can tell you that at one point in 1998, when the gigs got slow for me and everything started to die down, and there wasn't a whole lot of work, I accepted a position. I was going to start going back to Berkeley and driving up there from New York to teach, as did my dear friend Richie Hart. And then I was offered a position at CBS News to work as an editor, or at that time video editor. And I took the job. Not that I have any great love for the news business, but the money was good. And at the time, even hustling weddings and bar mitzvahs and singing Paradise by the Dashboard Lights became a tough lift. And the gigs were few and far between. And the jazz dates, as most people know, were paying what they paid in the 70s. So I took the job there, as opposed to, with the recommendation actually of Richie Hart saying, driving up from, at that time I lived in Rockland, driving up from Rockland to Massachusetts and dealing with the snow and the Mass Pike is a drag. Now, he since moved about 2 hours away from New York, so his ride's a little bit less. And he's a cat you should check out, Richie Hart. He teaches the West Course at Berkeley. I guess he's there maybe another year or so. Who knows? We're about the same age. But check him out. Anyway, so I took the job at CBS News and worked there, and then worked there as a staff for a long time, and now I still go in as a per diem. Anyway, at that time, I was pretty heartbroken that, the musician had to resort to a day gig. And the only day gig I ever really had was teaching at Berklee College of Music, which I did early on after graduating from there. So I was pretty heartbroken. And I shot Charlie a letter with my first CD. And he wrote back, and I tried to find the letter because I know I have it somewhere in my files, but I couldn't find it. But he was so positive. He said, now you don't have to worry about money, and you can pay all the attention to playing the real music. Because let's face it, as musicians, we all straddle a fence between the gigs we want to do and the gigs we have to do. Early on, I remember doing a jazz date for, $75 and food, or $100 and a dinner, and I can play a wedding for $450. And when the mortgage is due, you're kind of squeezed. And anyway, unless you're so fortunate to have a good run, which I've had in the past, where I made a good amount of money. But like anything else, freelance, you have your ups and your downs. Anyway, Charlie Banacos, great educator. I'm going to throw something on the screen just to show you early on some of the stuff that he was doing. This was this was the first book on this subject that I ever knew, and it was Pentatonic Scale Improvisation by Charlie Banacos. It dates back to 1972. It was newly printed when I got my copy. If you can still find a copy, it's a rare book and a great book to have. And Charlie has a lot of former great students. Mike Stern and oh God, he was even called by Miles Davis. Gary Dial, fabulous piano player who still teaches along the lines of Charlie Banacos. God, the Jeff Berlin. There's the list goes on and on and on. You look up Charlie Banacos. He's a great individual, someone you should know a little bit about his history. Here's another one of his books. Let's see if I can put it there. Where is it? Nope, that's not what I want. Here's the other one that's so anyway, that's a bit of the history about the man that's behind me. I'm going to get rid of these overlays right now so we can chat about what we're going to talk about. So as it pops up on the screen, chromaticism. What's chromaticism? That's chromaticism. Chromatic scale, and it's resolutions to chords that you happen to be on at that moment, and its understanding of its gravitational pull towards chord tones, or tensions or suspensions or mini nines, sharp 11s, 13s, or whatever, but they're all targeted chord tones. Anyway, let me get out my paperwork so I can properly chat about this. So if there's also a video if you could try to find and it's called The Art of Jazz Guitar by George Benson. And George talks about his father said, you got to learn to use chromaticism. And George goes, well, what am I going to do with all this? What good is all this? And his father turned him on to Charlie Parker, which is the other Charlie in this conversation today. So I laid down the groundwork for Charlie Banacos and my wonderful history with him. And after this 1977, I still did correspondence lessons because I was back in New York. And he told me to go also visit Dennis Sandoli, which is the topic for another one of our hangs. Anyway, so we'll analyze some Charlie Parker and see how this is made use of. So take a look at this. I chose a C9 chord only because for the most part we've been chatting about the blues, and we've been chatting earlier on about the four chords that come from a minor 6 chord. So you'll see the arpeggio, or better term, the chord tones above. And you'll see 3. I'm looking on with you because I'm trying to find my actual sheet because I'm trying to organize my own book. You'll see the chord tones of C9. Okay? And the C9 is root is C, third, Z, fifth, G, flat 7, and the ninth is a D. Now, the first approach, and you've heard people call these different names, but the first thing is listed under direct resolution. And that direct resolution is you can go chromatic from below any of those chord tones. I mean, that's pretty natural. It's almost like doing this to the chord. But let's do it in a simple manner. B up to C, D sharp up to E, F sharp up to G, A up to B, C sharp up to D. Okay, and that's chromatic from below. That means you're half step below, you're sliding into the targeted notes. So that's how the gravity goes in that direction. Okay, the other is indirect resolution, but it's scaled from above, and that could be, it could be half steps, it could be whole steps. If you want to think about things being a mixolydian, and I don't normally use modal terms, because the one thing that Charlie Banacos did tell me is when you're working on, even with the modes are nothing more than chord tones with diatonic passing tones between them. So if you're thinking about C mixolydian, C, then E would be the third, and there is a diatonic passing tone of D. If it's mixolydian, then there's a diatonic passing tone between E up to G, which is an F natural. If you're thinking about going to the fifth, then that would be a B flat, of course, and going to the ninth would be an E down to the D, and going to I think we did that. The flat seven would be the C going down to B flat, which is the flat seven of the chord. So, but it could be any of the above. It could be a chromatic from above. It could be a whole step from above, which would, if you're approaching the E, would make it more like a Lydian flat seven, which would now be F sharp. But anyway, you'll see that I gave you options up there if you can see it close enough on the screen. I'm going to try to raise it up a little bit more without covering my hands or my face so you can readily see it. Okay, so now we have the scales from above, which would be D down to C, F sharp or F natural down to E, A down to G, C down to B flat, and E down to D. That's approaching the 9. Okay, again, it's direct resolution. That means that you're hitting one tone or an upper neighbor and you're bringing it down into the chord tone. Okay, now we have the next category, which is called indirect resolution. And all that really means is that you're combining the chromatic from below, you're jumping up to the scale from above, and then you're resolving. And in this case, I'll use an F natural. Okay. All right. So now you have the reverse of that. Scale from above, which is the D, jumping down to the B flat into the C, B natural into the C. Again, I'll use the F natural. And that takes me to the 9, which is the E down to C sharp and up to D. Okay, so now you have the direct and indirect resolution. And now you have, wherever you choose or have a whole step above a chord tone, you can use a double chromatic. Okay, and now we're starting to get into things where people now call enclosures. Enclosures. I don't know where that name come from, but someone penned the word enclosures. Anyway, so now we have D going down to C. Okay, I'm choosing F sharp now because I want the whole step and then the chromatic. All right. Next step. If we had the double chromatic, well then of course we can approach the note from below and then from above and then land. Okay, and that's what people label the true enclosure. You're enclosing the chord tone or the targeted tone. So here it is, chromatic from below, double chromatic from above. And last but not least. And of course, if you can go chromatic from below, then we can go double chromatic from above, chromatic from below, with the reverse of that enclosure. And those are the direct and indirect resolutions. Now, I think my first few lessons with Charlie, I had to write this all out on every chord. So we started with major seventh, then we went to minor seventh, then we went to dominant sevenths, and I had to write out in every key. So I had volumes and volumes of staff paper books. I still have them in my file. I don't know why I carry them around from house to house, except for reminiscing fond memories of Charlie Banacos. Okay, so that is what Charlie turned me on to early on, and that's not to mention. I mean, Charlie Banacos has great ear training courses, approaches. I thought I had great ears till I met Charlie, and I could tell you just a quick little thing. He did a cadence 1-4-5. I'm sure probably in C, and then he rubbed his foot on the ground. And he said, "Well, what note's that?" And I looked at him like, "What are you, out of your mind? What note's that?" and then he said, "Listen, just listen. You're not listening." Here I am thinking, well, I got good grades in my solfege class in my school ear training at Berkeley. But he played the cadence again, and then he did it, and I heard distinctly a B natural. And he said, "It's a B natural." Now, I have no perfect pitch. I have good relative pitch, like the majority of the people. I mean, there are some people with awesome absolute pitch, but Charlie Parker didn't have absolute pitch. George Benson doesn't. I mean, you could function reasonably well with relative pitch. Charlie Banacos didn't have perfect pitch. But anyway, that's another subject. So he has great courses in that, and there are some people with apps out now that you might want to check out. I have it on my phone. And they do pay tribute to Charlie on it, and it is called Politonus, Politonus, and it's a great app, and it's very similar. It's based on Charlie Banacos's ear training. Anyway, let's move on. So now we've discussed the chromatic approaches. Now let's look at some stuff and see how prominent it was. Yeah, I'm going to lose this. And I'm going to pop this up there. All right, this is a solo, a segment of Charlie Parker that you could probably get in the Omni book. It's from Billy's Bounce, which is a blues. And this is part of his turnaround. Now, one thing you'll notice that I think, and this is only my assumption, that 2-5 is just a dominant sound. That's how I think of it. I tie them both together. I don't separate G minor from C7 because to me it's just one big G minor 6 chord, which you've probably heard talked about when you look at Barry Harris. Barry Harris has a whole course and he discusses this. And he, I'm sure, I mean, he's an authority on this stuff, lived it. He analyzed a lot of Charlie Parker as well. But let's take a look at this particular thing, and you will see this repeated. All right, you see the F sharp. Now it's a G minor 7 chord, right, or C9 chord. So the F sharp is chromatic from below up to the G. Then you have the B, which is either flat 7 or flat 3, depending on how you want to analyze it, depending on what chord. Then you have the 9 or the 5 if you want to do that. Now here is something that Charlie Parker does a lot of times. And he uses a flat 9 here. Sometimes he uses a regular 9. Okay? So if you notice, he's going scale from above, which is the or. So if you're trying to analyze this as 2 to 5 to 2 to 5, he already hit the 5 as soon as he hit that E natural. Okay, and then on a strong beat he hits the C. So he's thinking that it's all a dominant sound. It's all a dominant sound. So again, here's that line. Okay, and it's all C7. Now, can you use this playing the blues? Of course. Could you put a pedal on and use it? Of course. You know, it's all music. You know, you want to push to have your own sound and your own style, so you draw from as much as you can, from as many influences as you can. Now, let's take a look at this one. I'll click it on, and we'll compare them. Not that one, I don't think. Let's try this. Here we go. Where is this from? I think this is from Barbados, maybe. One of his other tunes. Let me open it up for you. And what do you see? Here, I'll line up the two exact changes. Okay, here it is. Okay, so you see the use of chromaticism there. Okay, so, and let's grab another one. Oh, look, there it is again. I think this is from, it's another. I have these all listed someplace. Let's see. First was from Billy's Bounce. I believe the second one was from Passport. And the third one is from Barbados. So this one's from, let me say, this one's from Barbados. Yeah, this one's from Barbados. And what do you see again? All right. The same chromatic from below into the fifth or the root, depending on if you want to just call it the G minor 6 chord. So I'm going to call it old G minor 6 or C9. So it's a C9 chord. So chromatic into the fifth, up to the flat 7, to the 9. Here's that enclosure. Here's the flat 9. Oh, all right, so we did that one. I'm playing the same one. That's how repetitive these are. Which one do I want? Oh, this one. This is the one we're shooting for. Okay. Here we go. It starts out the same. Chromatic from below. Then he just thumps down. Flat 9. And so on. So, but it's the same. If you look at that first bar, the second bar of the first one, the second bar of the second one, and the chord symbol is all C7 or C9 or G minor 6. So that's the use of chromaticism of Charlie Parker, the other Charlie that we discussed. So these are useful. You should get your ear to get used to them, so that you can do them wherever you want. Like such. Anyway, I'll shut that off. All right, so let's move on to one other topic I'd like to discuss today, and that are bebop scales. Now, what is a bebop scale? Let me lose some of this Charlie Parker stuff, and we'll discuss a bebop scale, and I'll put them up. Here is the basic bebop scale. And the reason why I'm calling it the basic, because there's, this was a handle that was given to a bunch of things that were moving in stepwise motion. So if it's stepwise motion, we just take the liberty to call it a scale. I don't think scales, but nonetheless, let's just analyze this. And there are a number of them. What they are arpeggios with a few of these chromaticisms added to the scale. So I'm sorry, guys. I'm not. I'm so caught up in spitting out my stuff here that I'm not paying attention to my messages. So, and my buddy Jeff McErlane is on. I early on mentioned that. I'll repeat it again about our guitar chat. I'll watch this one a few times to absorb this. I'm trying to give you as much info as possible, so I'm sorry if I move quick. You can reach out to me. Definitely, give a thumbs up if you like this. Tell people to jump in. Tell people to watch them. Tell people to like it. Tell people to subscribe. There'll be more to come. I think I'm going to do a whole thing on Ray Charles, since Ray Charles is a great thing to help cross over the blues into soul music and R&B. But anyway, let's get back to this bebop scale. The bass, and I'm calling it the basic bebop scale because there's a reason. There are many, because any group of chord tones, like we just did, we did a C9 chord, and if I want to use it and then add one of two of those chromatics just to that, I'll have a scale, I guess, So if you look at this one, this is reasonably a unique one. If you were to run a let's just say a Mixolydian, again I'm calling modes here, a Mixolydian scale, and you do it in eighths, everything the strong beats of the C7 do not necessarily fall on a strong beat, okay? Especially if you're going 2 octaves. Watch. Downbeat. But if you add one chromatic note in there, and in this case I'm using a major 7, which is chromatic from below to the root, then if you play it from any chord tone of a C7, and you do it as an eighth note, you will always land on a strong beat. Now, is it imperative that things land on strong beats? In the scale of 1 to 100, I would say, 80% of the time, your melodies will sound stronger. Does that mean that you have to do it all the time? No. But once you get your ear in tune with playing on these changes, then your ear will kind of tell you where the strong beats are, and if you want to either be deceptive about it and not land on a strong beat, or you'd rather be more deliberate with it, that's up to you. That's your that's your poetic license. But anyway, let's just run through the scale for a second. All right, I'm going to do it. Well, I'm used to reading up an octave because guitar is transposed up an octave. So here it is. Now that's starting on the root. What happens if I start on the flat 7? Right? So no matter where I start, I will be on a strong beat. All right, let's do it on the 3rd. Let's do it on, what did I miss? The 5th. So it's a good compositional tool. It's a good transitional tool. It'll get your ear to hear the chromatic note. B natural is not a scary note. It's not considered major 7 on a dominant 7th chord. It's moving. It's moving. It's actually, what if you wanted to voice that note by itself, if I was going to harmonize that scale, okay, I would play C, of course, C7. That would be G7, the D. Okay, the E is C7, the F is G7, the G is G7 or C7, could be either. Okay, the A is the 13th, then the B flat is the flat 7, and then this is a G7 chord, bringing me back to C. So it's a scale that chromaticism, when they're to be harmonized, they are dominant sounds. But anyway, I'm making a right or left hand turn here on y'all. So anyway, getting back to that scale. I'm using it here, but I'm attacking my chord tone. Yeah, I just robbed Charlie Parker. Chord tone, I'll go down the bebop scale. Oh, now back to I'm doing a line. So what did I do there? Let's just analyze that, because there was a lot of chromaticism in that. I went down, strong tone, strong beat, E. There's the C, strong beat, B flat, strong beat G, F, E, strong beat. So that whole thing was. Sorry. All right, so that's making use of that bebop scale. That one happens to be a very clever one, because of the fact that you start on any note of the chord, the assumed chord. In this case, we're assuming it's a C7 or a C9 or and you start on it, you will hit a chord tone on every strong beat. Okay. Here is one more. Where is my? I have another one with a few more on there. I just want to post. Where did it go? Bear with me, guys. I can't seem to find that overlay. Anyway, I will explain what that is with the other. The other bebop scales that you might come across. One is the scale that you see Barry Harris talk about a lot, and that one has a chromatic note between the 5 and the 6, and that's. And that's more of a major sound because you're using that. It's kind of a C major 6. That doesn't necessarily have the same thing as this one, my basic one for the dominant chord, because you won't necessarily land on chord tones all the time. And that's C, D, E, F, G, G sharp, A, B, C. Okay, and then he, if you look up Barry Harris, he'll take that and he'll turn that into dominant. So now it's C, D, E, F, G, G sharp, A, B flat, C. And that's his bebop scale, or his scale for that. And then you just flat the third, of course, and now you have that minor version. That's minor 7. And in the one that I presented, if you flat the third, you have a minor 7, with the leading tone of the B natural. So that's the world of chromaticism. The way I hear it, the way I approach it when I solo, that's how I think. That's how, thanks to Charlie Banacos, the great Charlie Banacos, that's how I think when I solo. That's how I think whether I'm playing, harmonically, if I'm doing this. That's how I think. I think of all 12 notes and how they're going to approach the chord that I'm on, and how am I going to get to the chord that I want to get to in a voice leading manner. So take a look at Charlie Parker. So I'm pretty honored that I can pass on stuff that Charlie Banacos turned me on to decades ago. Look him up. He was definitely a talented teacher, a talented musician, and a really wonderful soul. Look him up, and of course, the more you analyze Charlie Parker, the more you will see these things go on. I happen to choose the Billy's Bounce, an example from Passport, an example from Barbados. I had one more from Leapfrog. But you see, God, if I had a buck for every time he did this. But you'll see it there, and it never hurts to take, and learn, take from the greatest, like I said in the past. George Benson says, if you don't want me to steal it, don't play it in front of me. So, so that was my topic for today. Any questions on anything, as we move on? Just to reiterate, the world of two Charlies, Charlie Banacos and Charlie Parker. Chromatic Approaches. We analyzed Charlie Parker solos. We talked about bebop scales, which is nothing more than incorporating a few chromaticisms to get them in your ear, so that you do not sound like you're just reaching for the light switch in the dark. I'll have all this assembled in a book that I'm going to establish in different phases, starting way back to the construction of a major scale and going all the way beyond this, and to other things that I tossed out there in a few of my other live chats, and things that I chatted with Jeff when he was nice enough to invite me onto his site. Now the other thing is, I'm having a guitar chat with my buddy Jeff McErlane, an old friend, and sideman to Robin Ford. That's going to be this Saturday. I think the date's the 19th at noon Eastern Standard Time. And we'll talk a lot about a lot of things. Guitars, notes, chords, the blues, not the blues, Robin Ford, George Benson, whatever comes to mind. Whatever. If you want to join the chat and you shoot out some stuff. Yep, Charlie Banacos. That's him back there. And, I couldn't find many more. I was going to contact his daughter to see if I can get, get a better picture. But that's all I could find online of the wonderful man. So we'll be doing a lot of that chatting. And if you have questions about Robin, you got questions about George. I mean, Robin Ford and is you know an awesome blues player, wonderful musician, and of course my connection with George Benson. So there's a lot of stuff we can chat about. So tell people to join us and throw questions at us and take part in the conversation, because we do have a gift of gab, and especially when it comes to to guitar and music and passing on the goods. Again, it's 12 o'clock on Saturday Eastern Standard Time. Give a thumbs up on my thing, subscribe, pass it on, tell people to jump on board. I have fun sharing this. I appreciate you all, attending. It's always fun to share it. What else? What else can I quickly chat about? What other? I had a lesson with Charlie. Even when I moved back to New York, I used to go see Charlie once a week. And here's what I would do. I mean, at that point, I had graduated Berkeley. I taught at Berkeley for a few years, and then I left my teaching position at Berkeley. Which my parents weren't too happy about, because here I am playing guitar and teaching, right out of school. And to my dad, who grew up in the Depression, he was like, "You're handing in a resignation?" I said, "Yeah." I said, I left Fort Lee High School, Fort Lee, New Jersey, at 17. I went to Berkeley. I graduated Berkeley, and I started teaching at Berkeley. So I never left the nest, and here I am trying to teach fellow musicians how to be seasoned musicians, and I never left the nest. So I got anxious to come back to New York. So I handed my resignation. But anyway, I still went and hung with Charlie, and I would drive up Trailways bus. I would get there. I would teach one of my former students a lesson, so he would let me in payment for sleeping on his floor. And then I would meet Charlie Banacos at 6:30 in the morning for a lesson. I would come with a cup of coffee for him and me, and Charlie was just as fired up at 6:30 in the morning as he is at 2 in the afternoon. And we had great lesson. Then I would leave his lesson, get back on the Trailways bus, take a nap, and get back into the terminal at the end of the New York side of the GW Bridge, and then head back to New York. Or in that case, I was renting an apartment for my folks in Fort Lee. But Charlie was always on, always positive. I think I have a picture of Charlie with one of his students here, and this is the epitome of Charlie. Let's see. Here he is with a student. Let me open this up. That's Charlie. Teaching another one of his students. Always a blast. Always a blast. Heartbroken with his loss. You want to know more about Charlie? There's a website. There's a Facebook page. You can chat with his daughter, another fine piano player. My buddy Luciano Salvatore, great piano player, and his son Sergio Salvatore, great piano player at 11 years old, was touring with John Patitucci and Peter Erskine. But there's a lot of great stories about Charlie. And if you want to go into depth, track down a wonderful piano player named Gary Dial. Gary Dial has been authorized to continue to teach the Charlie Banacos method. I don't know if it's exactly a method, but but Charlie, I think I was probably the first guitar player in 1971 to start studying with Charlie. It happened that I stayed in Boston during Thanksgiving break, and Charlie had like a 1.5 2-year waiting list, and I had just put my name on the list about 2 months earlier. And I guess they went down the list, and everybody was away, And I was still sitting in my apartment, and they said, "Well, would you want to study with Charlie? You're on the list." And I said yes, and that got me on there. I know Mike Stern studied with him. A number of wonderful guitar players studied with him. Wonderful trumpet players, sax, you name it. Charlie became, the universal mentor for many of us. So anyway, let me see. Thank you. Should have read the details below. I'll check out his work, improvisation. Hey, Rosmel, were you here the whole time? I'm not sure. I tried to arrange it where I can see everybody's thing, everybody's comments. But is there any questions about anything we discussed? There you go. Someone's saluting Jeff. Again, Jeff and I will chat on Saturday at noon, Eastern Standard Time. Talk about a whole bunch of a lot of stuff. Any questions on any of this chromaticism? It's how I think. I don't think scales. I think chord tones. Yes, Gary Dial. Gary Dial is a piano player, great piano player. I think he was originally from Montclair, New Jersey. He lives in Manhattan. You could see him online. I don't know. He pretty much teaches piano, but with the Charlie Banacos approach. Anyway, back to how I think. I mean, my thinking is chord tones. That's the gravitational pull. Whether it's what the band is playing, if someone is playing this, and I'll just do a little bit. This is just a C7. I hope everybody can hear it. Just a little C7 vamp, right? So here is playing on it. All right. Now I'll play not what's there. Okay. Now what did I do? I just did a dominant approach to take me back to it. So I played this chord, a G7 chord. Even though, but I'm still outlining a chord. I still hear, I still speak on a chord. It may not be the chord that is the gravity behind me, but if I know where the gravity is and I can play on that chord, I'm playing on the chord. If I stop anywhere, I'll tell you what note stop. Oh, that's the 9. I'm going chromatic down to the flat 7. Oh, there's the major 7. Flat 9. Ra-do. Now I'm going to go to flat 5 sub. I'll go flat 5 sub and I'll go to a dominant approach. Let's see. anyway, that's how I think. That's how I hear. You know. Any questions? Shoot me questions on all this stuff. Who's that sound like? All right, guys, give me a thumbs up. Don't forget this Saturday, the 19th. Visit Jeff and I as we chat. It'll be my first time trying to do that kind of stuff. Hopefully, there'll be no technical glitches. We did a little quick run through. So hopefully it'll be okay. I'm just gonna, sit here and amuse myself for a little bit, for maybe about another 2 or 3 minutes. If anybody has any questions, that'd be Gary Dial. Yep. You can find him online as well. I thank you all for joining me. We'll do it again. I just want to give another heads up about Saturday, and also I'm going to hit to my house in Florida for 2 weeks down in St. Augustine, a great town. And the first 2 weeks of July, I might not be on here because I'd rather not do it off of my just simple little Mac when I have all my little green screen and all that stuff going on. So, yes, Charlie was a great dude for sure. Okay, y'all. Don't forget Saturday, noon. Jeff and I, thanks for hanging out with me. I hope I passed on some good stuff to y'all. All right. I'll see you all soon. Stay safe. Ciao.